good afternoon, and good late evening to everybody. I see a lot of you from India, and thank you for attending this talk. I know it's pretty late in India, so thanks a lot for taking the time out and coming here today. I'll be talking about accessibility and inclusivity. And like Julia mentioned, I'll be talking about impact in simulations and with the help of some examples. Post that, we could talk about a few, like if anyone has questions, please feel free to, like she said, feel free to type it out in the chat window. I'm not an expert in this field. It's like a disclaimer. So I'm still learning. I'm very new to this field as well. Since the past like 1 or 2 years, maybe I've been trying to get as much as information and educate myself regarding this. Yeah, I'll take you all through my story in a bit. So this is just like, yeah, this is one of my few talks as well. So I'm new to this and I'm a bit nervous, but yes. To get started, yeah, I started working with IBM a couple of years ago after I graduated from Srishti Institute of Art, Design and Technology from Bangalore in India. It's been roughly like 18 months since I'm working at IBM now. And yes, so starting with, like, I would like to first explain to everyone or just give a brief idea about what disability is, or the way we are looking at it right now. It's the result of like an interaction between a person and an environment with a health condition and a particular environmental context. So today we'll be talking about web accessibility. So these people who we are designing for will have, like, the disability might be seen only when they interact with the web, not otherwise. Like maybe someone with color blindness will not be able, I mean, they don't face that much difficulty on a day-to-day basis, but when they are interacting with the web and when colors are not accessible, that's when they face some difficulty. So yeah, so there are like some permutations, combinations. So I'll be talking about web accessibility in particular. So going further, so this is the kind of breakup of my session. So there'll be a small poll that I think Vicky or Julia will post about, and y'all can click on. So I see that the poll is out. So it's in the chat. 1 minute. So I'll go with the poll first, then I'll talk about impact for like around 5 minutes, and then we'll go through simulations. So this may take like 10 to 15 minutes depending on the conversations or questions that come up, followed by some examples on which I have worked on during college and after college, during university, after university. And then I'll just share some resources with everyone, followed by like a Q&A section where we can just chat or talk about how y'all thought the session was, if y'all want me to address anything further. So going with the first poll, so starting with the poll questions, if y'all can just click on the link that is there, the first link, how familiar are you to accessibility? That would be awesome to see, or it'll be really cool to see your answers. Is everyone able to access the link?
You might need to put them in the chat, Chelsea.
Yes.
Because I don't think we can.
Oh, that's cool. So we have 12 people who have used them in their projects. We have 4 who are new to them. And we have like 17 to 18 people who have read a few articles about it, but still new. And that's cool. There's no one who's hearing about it for the first time. So this is really, really awesome. It's really nice to like see people aware about this field. So, then the second one is why do you care about accessibility? Okay, so most of the attendees today don't have any connection with anyone who falls under a person with disabilities. That's really cool, because the experience I had was, so I knew people who were facing some difficulties, and that's why I was Like it became more of a personal goal for me. But that's cool. So you have friends, you have family members, you fall under the list of okay, and others. That's cool. And I'll just go with the last one and then we can continue with the presentation. It's just nice to like know who is kind of attending the talk so that I can go about it accordingly. Okay, so most of us are working professionals and design students. Some are design students with a focus on accessibility. That's cool. Okay, cool. So I'll get back to my presentation. Okay, so thank you for answering that. It was really nice to see your responses. And I also wanted to make it a little interactive at the same point. So we'll start with impact and yeah, so I'll talk a bit about my background and interest, followed by some guidelines and some companies that are on the forefront of web accessibility and who are taking efforts towards achieving web accessibility. So my interest started in this field of inclusivity and accessibility when I was in high school, and I was asked to become a writer or a scribe for a, a student who had dyslexia. So like she could read and write perfectly, but just that she used to make like tiny mistakes. So it was just like, to be on the safer side, I used to write her paper, and I was like a grade younger than her grade. So if that girl was in the 10th grade, I was in the 9th grade. And sometimes I felt like she was, a bit like intimidated because a person from a lower grade is, helping you write your paper, and you're not like, that feeling of independence was taken away. Now of course, like we have tools like we have voice recorders, we have Alexa, Siri, a lot of tools that can record what you say. So I don't know, like examination answers could be recorded in such a way, because like there's no need to really, sit and write examination papers. But that's how I was introduced to this field. And just looking at that whole experience, I was like, something needs to be done over here. We can't leave this the way it is. And this experience for these students with disabilities can definitely be improved, because a lot of them hesitate from asking for a writer during their high school because they're really not comfortable with it, and often like people judge them, and a lot of a lot of those things. So, and I also had friends, family, acquaintances who were facing learning disabilities, hearing loss. My grandmom has like 80% hearing loss. So every time there's no, on YouTube, she's watching a movie. If we're watching a movie on YouTube, which doesn't have subtitles, she feels like she's not included. And there's no way she can hear it, because like the subtitles is the only way she can kind of understand what's being spoken. So going forward, this is a quote that I'd like to talk about, Stephen Hawking, where he's saying that disability is not an obstacle to success, and we should remove the barriers that these people face in order to participate in competitions, or like just in general, like to include them more in everyday things that we do. So this is a quote that really stayed with me. And going forward, so some quick tips to start with, so just to like, so that everyone can relate to like just tiny things that we all can do as individuals in our day-to-day life. So one is we should try our best to not include hashtags in between sentences. So if this like, if for example, if this accessible here in the second sentence was a hashtag, the screen readers, all users who go through the web with screen readers, don't like, screen readers don't read hashtags the way they look visually. Um, the code is different and they don't respond. So it's similar with smileys. So if you use emojis, and if you use a tongue out emoji, it will not like, it will not describe the emoji. We have a habit of, I mean, at least me, I have a habit of using like many emojis at the same time. So if I'm laughing, I'm going to use like 10 laughing emojis. So that is not a good practice, especially when it comes to using, I mean, typing out posts on social media, because they, like the screen reader is going to say laughing with the tongue out, laughing with the tongue out like 10 times, and anyone using a screen reader is going to get super annoyed and they're going to be like, no, just skip this whole thing. So maybe the most important information was lying after these 10 emojis, but they missed it out just because it became like a repetition. So hashtags and emojis work the same way, so it's always best to leave them at the end of the information that is important. And a second quick tip is using camel case for hashtags. So if you realized over here, um, inclusivity and accessibility are fine because it's just one word, but screen readers and making social media accessible, it's all camel case. So the way screen readers can make more sense of this information if they are placed in this manner, and they're just more accessible to read even for us. So if the same making social media accessible was written in like plain small case, it would be difficult even for someone who doesn't have a cognitive disability to read it. And screen readers just pick it up more in a better way. So these were some quick tips, and then we can move forward to POE guidelines. Over here, yeah, so POE guidelines are mainly perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So anything we design, whether it is a mobile app, whether it is a website, a service, or a digital tool, anything digital needs to be perceivable. So the content presented should be visible to at least one of the user's senses. And she should be able to perceive the content that is presented to them in the form of an interface or a web page. So anything, like whether it is information read by a screen reader, or it is like I said, narrated the story of my grandmom, they should be able to either see it or hear it, or there should be some alternative. So one sense should be it should be visible to one of their senses. Then we have operable, which is the user should be able to interact with the content, and the content, like we should ensure that the content is readable and understandable. And the third one is understandable. So the user must be able to understand the information and the operation of the interface that they are presented with. The fourth guideline is robust, where the content needs to be robust enough in such a way that it should be like it should work with assistive technologies and not break with these technologies. It should work together with them and support them. So yeah, so this is all about like the guidelines. Then we move on to the companies that are doing work in this area. So Apple is, I will talk about Apple in the next slide, but Google is, it's in the POC. Like I went through their blog and I read that they're trying to include people who are hard of hearing with automatic sign language detection for video conferencing, because a lot of times you don't have subtitles, like and it's difficult for someone who cannot hear to kind of understand what's going on. So it's developing, it's in the POC stage right now, and hopefully they can come up with it, but they're taking strides towards achieving web accessibility and going beyond what is asked. Then we have Adobe, which I will also talk about, and I will, at the end of the talk, I will share all these links with everyone. And yeah, so Adobe is making like a lot of color tools to improve color accessibility in Photoshop, Illustrator, or any Lightroom or any app like that. And Microsoft has an inclusive toolkit, which I will also talk about in the coming slides. So these four companies, according to me, like there are tons of companies, but just on a large scale, they're taking a lot of trouble to kind of take steps towards achieving accessibility. And so this is one of my favorite videos. I don't think I'll play this right now because my internet might lag and it'll just be like lagging. So I'll share these contacts with you in the PDF that I will share. So please do watch it if you get the chance to. It depicts how this user is using voice control on the Mac. So that was all about impact, and a little more about like impact is in India. I am from India, so the guidelines here and the laws here that are followed for web accessibility are slightly different from the ones in the US. In the US, it is more strict, and websites have to follow web accessibility, whereas in India, there is no set rule yet. We're making progress, but it's not reached the level at which the US is. And I believe that even in the US around like 1997, 98 was when web accessibility was made, like a law was passed that everything had to be web accessible, and all organizations, companies had to revamp their websites, and a lot of efforts were taken. Even now, like sometimes there are like lawsuits, etc. And it's kind of sad that a lot of times these companies follow accessibility guidelines only because they want to dodge lawsuits, but that should not be the aim, and we should all try to include everyone who has access to the web to be able to interpret and digest this information. So we'll move to simulations. This is my favorite part because this is where you can actually understand how people with disabilities experience information on the internet. So we'll spend around 10 minutes on these simulations, and then we can move forward. So first, I would like to talk about some plugins that I personally found really interesting and informative, and they're really, really helpful. They're all free of cost. Everyone can use them. Then we'll talk about carpal tunnel syndrome. This is just a small simulation. So if you have a paper around, any piece of paper, just like in the next 2-3 minutes, you can just grab it. Then there are a few other simulations as well, where I may need some volunteers, or we can I can just talk and you all can do it in your own time. So the first plugin I want to talk about is Stark. This is available for XD, Adobe XD, as well as Sketch. And this gives you a colorblind simulation. So for example, I've taken an illustration which is completely dependent on color. And with the help of, so for right now I'm using Sketch. So in Sketch, when you have when you upload, I mean when you put this illustration on an artboard, and you use the plugin, you can see different kinds, like how people with color blindness can view this. So this is how the original illustration looks like. Someone with protanopia can see it like this. Someone with tritanopia can see it like this. Whereas someone with deuteranopia can see it like this. So this particular illustration, this is still confusing, right? Like this blue and this blue is little hard to see. But in a lot of times, if we use colors that are very close to each other, someone who's colorblind can really not make sense of what is being presented, and they cannot enjoy the information as much as we can. So Adobe has come up with a tool called Adobe Color, which you can get hold of on Adobe Cloud. And here you can upload whatever colors you have. I mean the tags of whatever, codes of whatever colors you are using in your illustration, and it will tell you if this is accessible or not. And it also gives you some suggestions that to which you can switch in case it is not accessible. So here it's saying that, A and B colors are in conflict and one of them should be moved to another swatch. So you do that, and then so once you do that, it says that, okay, there are no conflicts found now. So the swatches that I have selected here are colorblind safe. So this is something that's really easy to do. I mean, if you're going to spend 5 to 6 hours making an illustration, you might as well just check it before, so that more than like 1 million people can also view the illustration the way you want them to view it. Like they can view it irrespective, but it's just good if they can view it the way you wanted them to. Next, so this was about color blindness. So there's Adobe Color, and we spoke about Stark. So Stark also comes into, this also comes handy when we're designing like screens or just prototypes of any software, for any software or website, because a lot of times we think that, so there's Carbon Design System by IBM that is that uses colorblind safe colors. But a lot of times when those colors are used in combination, they're not that distinct. So this tool just helps you look at these different simulations in very quickly. So even when not just illustrations, but even when we're designing interfaces for different projects or I don't know, just work in while you're doing everyday work, it will be really helpful if you can keep checking it. Like, I don't know, even once a week, giving this 5 minutes will be really helpful. Then we move to cognitive disability. So the next slide contains certain words, and so I don't think we need volunteers, but you can try and kind of read what the word is or the sentence is. So it will have a color, the name of a color, but you're not supposed to read the word by the, like if the word is orange, you shouldn't read the word as orange. The, like the word has been written in a certain color. So in your head, you try and read it by the color it is presented it and not the word itself. So this will help you understand how someone with a cognitive disability might view information that is presented to them. So here, okay, I'll just give like 10 seconds. Try and read these words by the color, not the word. What comes first to your mind? Just like try and understand, like, are you reading this as orange? Because for me, whenever I look at it first, my first thought is orange. But no, I was given an instruction to read it by the color, not the word. So this will be red, lavender, like green. But like even right now, while reading it by default, I spoke green. Like I said green, but actually this is blue. Then this is brown. No, it's pink. So this is something that um, students or people with dyslexia often face. They're given an instruction, but their brain tells them to do something else. And a lot of times, like what I'm saying, I'm looking at this as orange. It is not wrong, but at the same time, it's not what I was asked. So it's like a constant conflict when they are presented with some rules. So they should just be easy. Like the point of this example is to uh, kind of ask everyone to or request everyone to present information that is easy to follow, not ask and not present something and ask the audience to view it some other way. So just keep instructions simple to follow and something that everyone can grasp easily. Then now the next slide will contain a few sentences which we would want volunteers to read out. So, okay, maybe there's no need for volunteers, but
I can
yeah.
come in and try.
Okay. Okay, sure. Yeah, you can. So, okay, I'm not showing it to you first.
Okay.
So you can try, you can try and read the word, that sentence that is presented. It's
Okay.
a jumbled sentence.
Okay.
So just try and read it out aloud.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, the black
Yes.
cat
Yes.
sat on the hot tin for roof.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I need some more coffee. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next.
Do you want to try the second one? Yeah.
Yes. Make
okay. Yeah.
words to win.
Woo. Yes, correct. So this was just like this is a jumbled sentence. It's difficult to read, and this is not maybe not the most apt representation for a simulation for someone facing dyslexia, but someone having dyslexia. But a lot of times they see words like B and D are like they write B like this, whereas they write D like this, and they interchange the words a lot of times. So this is just to like close to what their sentences and paragraphs may look like. Now there are different levels of dyslexia, but this may be like towards the extreme end. And yeah, so just like we should try and keep information as simple as possible. So this is just a simulation of how someone will view your information. So like, yeah, try to keep text to the minimal as much as possible. Then, so like I asked you all, if you have a paper around you, you can take it and roll it into a straw, and we'll go through the slides that are coming up. So the first slide is, this is the normal size. So this is for someone who's using screen readers, or someone with a carpal tunnel syndrome, or anyone who's using Zoom text. So when the text, I mean, when the browser is at the normal size, this is how you view it. It looks beautiful, it's all aligned, and I don't know, like this is aligned, there's emphasis on this paragraph, then I go to this, then I go to this and this, there's a good order. But now someone with a screen reader is going to zoom in, right? So now this is how they see it. This is plus 30%, sorry, yeah, this is plus 30%. So now they have to scroll down to get to this paragraph, but actually this was supposed to come after the first paragraph. So I don't know myself what the right way to present this information is, but this is something we can think about. We can try zooming in, zooming out while we're designing such screens. And yeah, so I've completely missed out on the title itself. So yeah, and when someone with a carpal tunnel syndrome is going to view this, they cannot even see this part. They can only see like the circle in the middle of the screen. They can't see the menu, this hamburger menu also. So this is a tool, it's a plugin called No Coffee, which has all kinds of simulations that you can think of, visual simulations, which you can simulate. And this is available as a plugin for Google Chrome. And if you install it, you can literally view anything that you're viewing in your Chrome with this plugin. So this is how someone with a carpal tunnel syndrome views views the web pages. And that's why if you realize, a lot of times media articles or news articles will be limited to just the center column, like this column, the sides will be empty. That's because a lot of people cannot see the sides. They have like I don't know, they have corner or retinal detachment, or they have like glaucoma, or they may have carpal tunnel syndrome, or they may be zooming into the text a lot. So yeah, so these are just like small things to keep in mind while we design. So this was the end of the plugins. I will share these this list. There's another plugin called High Contrast that helps you view these like the same web pages, but it's kind of like the same. I like No Coffee better, so I was a little bit partial towards it. But yeah, so this was a list of simulations and plugins that I often use, and I would love if you guys also use them. Then we can move to examples. This is work that I have done, and I kind of want to continue. But now the work I have done, like I've just tried to educate myself as much as I could about accessibility, but I haven't got a chance yet to work in a project that is specifically dedicated to accessibility. I have like the projects I work on in IBM, I am obviously trying to make the product as much as accessible as possible. But the projects that I have worked in till now have been towards the inclusivity side, not the web accessibility side. So I'll just briefly take you all through. I know we are running a bit late on time, but I'll just quickly take you through a couple of projects that I've worked on. So the first one was my pre-thesis project in college. The second one was my final project, undergraduate project. And then I made a few accessible personas that everyone can use. And then there are just like some small parts that you can include in your research phase, in the research phase of your project. So the first one was to design to improve the experiences for children in hospitals. So a lot of times, like for children who visit hospitals for the first, second, third times, or even like till they're till they're maybe at the age of 7, they don't feel included in the hospital because they're not given an option for anything. It's an unfamiliar space, it's an unpleasant atmosphere, everyone's really sad, doctors are wearing white coats, everyone, like, there's a distinct smell that you have in the hospital. So these children feel very anxious, and what I tried to do through my project was to transfer this fear to, like, fear of the hospital to a cheer. So I had cubes like this, and each side of the cube was these were made out of cushions, so pillows. They are like pillow blocks, and each side has one story, like one storyboard. And based on color, like all the red color frames will form one story, and all these stories were trying to they, uh, kind of give the children a sense of that, you know, the doctors are just going to help you get better. So if it's a dentist, so one like very common example is, if you go to the dentist when you were small, you would get an ice cream on your way back. So look at it as that, and then you know that, okay, so you can tell the children when they're at the dentist, when you move out of here, we'll get an ice cream. So they look at the dentist from a different perspective. Of course, that's temporary, but yeah, it just helps. So if they have a cough and a cold, they get and they take their syrups and medicines on time, they can have their favorite chips again later. So they were just like two communication tools to help the children feel included in the space. So I user tested this a lot, and the response was great as well. Yeah, and then another project that I worked on during college was Enhance, where we reimagined the doctor-patient communication at a neuroscience lab in India. And it was a team project, and it was my final undergraduate project. So we were a team of 8. And just to give a quick background, so this hospital that we worked with had low patient doctor ratio. They had like 400 patients a day, and yeah, over the years, the number of doctors had not changed, but the cases had tripled. It was a government run body, and usually in India, all these patients who come to government hospitals are from a diverse socioeconomic background, and the medical understanding that they have is really low. So they have low information retention as a result of that. And as they don't have a formal education, and most of the terms that doctors use may end up as like technical jargon for them. Then there are a lot of language barriers, because in India we speak more than like 20 languages, more than 30 languages. So everyone doesn't always know English or the national language that we have. And as a result of that, there's a lot of repetition of information. So these patients are not included, like they feel like they're not given a chance to understand the condition of their family member better in order to make an informed decision. So yeah, so as a result of all that, they used to make very uninformed decisions, and as a result of all the challenges that I spoke about earlier. And our aim through this project Enhance was to help them to make informed decisions. Like, just tell them this will be the complication, this is going to be the list of risks that the patient may face. So because it was a neuro science lab where interventional radiology was practiced, a lot of times the patient would go into the operation theater walking but would not come out alive. So the family would really get a shock if they don't know what's happened behind the scene. And it's really difficult for the doctors to explain to them, because they don't understand what being brain dead is. For them, the heart failing is the only way a person can die. So just explaining these small terms was also a task for the doctors. And that's where we came into play. So we wanted to create an inclusive environment within the doctors and the patients. And yeah, so as a part of the research phase, we were trying to understand the target demographic without any bias. So we conducted like a month-long or 2-month research with like 75 participants in person. And we had activities like card sorting, image show and tell, workshops and all these were conducted in like 8 various languages and through personal experiences, because we wanted to understand from the target demographic what their feelings were. And that like we didn't want to uh, assume anything by ourselves. So we had stakeholder maps, patient journey maps. We played Pictionary with them as like a breaker, like just to make them comfortable with us during these workshops. Because a lot of times we didn't know the same language as the language that they spoke. Then we had, so I will share this link with you all if anyone wants to visit uh, the site and get a better understanding of the research report. So we had like cards like I don't know, like evidence of the diagnosis or guarantee tests. So we asked them to sort them within like what was most important to them, what was medium, least, and what was not a problem. So this way we kind of narrowed down our solutions that we came up with. And we did this with like 75 participants. So we kind of took the average of everything. We came up with explainer videos where we animated each and every medical process that they were experiencing, that they were operating or conducting. And we had subtitles for everything, and they were all recorded with an audio in like 8 different languages of the patients that came there. Then we had audio visual consent forms, because a lot of patients don't understand English. Most of the patients who come to this hospital did not understand English. So we had translated the information in different languages, Indian languages. And at the same time, there was an audio that was speaking, that would narrate what was being presented to them on the screen. So this would help them understand what they were signing. And we had takeaway pamphlets. So a lot of times doctors keep drawing small things while they are explaining some treatment procedure to you. So a lot of times that information may not make sense to you, but if you have like some skeleton drawing with it, and the doctor draws on it, the patient can take it back to the rest of the family, show it to them, and then take an informed decision. So these were the 3 things that we had. Then so that was my thesis project. Now we'll move on to the next example. So I have created a set of accessible personas. um, so this is the persona of a severely sight impaired screen reader user, and in each of these personas we have like a small background about them, some sentence that they said, or what they want to do, what some goal that they want to achieve, the devices and technology that this particular user uh, uses. So she uses Zoom Text, she has a desktop, she has an iPhone 6, she uses VoiceOver and speak screen, and she'd like to get a MacBook in the future. Then what her goals and wishes are. So this is similar to this quote here. And what frustrates her. So we have, I've created these personas for 6 different users that may be using the web and communicating, trying to communicate with us through the internet. And this is, I have uploaded PDFs of this in my article, which I'll share with you guys. And if you all want, if you all like it, you can print it out, modify it the way you want, and use it in your projects. So this, every time you, so it is really beneficial if you include an accessible persona in your set of personas that you come up with at the beginning of the research phase. So if you have a persona that needs some accessibility, you will at least cater to that particular accessibility. You may not be able to, practically, you may not be able to cater to all the 10 or 12 types of accessibilities, but even including one, a lot of times takes care of majority of them. So this is highly recommended. Yeah, so these are just some types that some guidelines that you should follow in order to make the information accessible for Brinda. Then there is a website by the UK government where these personas are available, and you can even simulate your own laptop in such, your own environment in such a way that you experience the information the same way. Like, this is not even a plugin. You actually change your contrast, you make your full screen magnifier, you make your mouse cursor large, and they have given like very specific guidelines that we can follow for each of these personas. So I had Indianized the personas a little because I wanted to use them in this context, but actually the way they're present is a very UK context. So I think most of you can use them the way they are and follow these steps to kind of see how these different kinds of people are going to be interacting with your information. Then there's body storming, which is another activity which I really, really like, and I highly recommend this also. This is slightly tough to carry and it's a little time consuming, but it's really helpful. And it will help you understand situational disabilities as well as what your end user is going, how your end user is going to be using the information. So it's one of the best methods to understand users who are differently abled. And the way it works is you simulate the whole environment, your office space, your studio space, or just at home to the context. So this is, of course, primary research is highly recommended, but in the current scenario, maybe we may not be able to go and actually look at the way our users are interacting with the information. So we simulate. So for example, if it is a hospital, you get the blood pressure machine, you get like receipts that the doctors or administrators write to you. You stand in a line and you make this whole environment very, very similar to what the users experience. So so here, like I attended this workshop at a design agency called Obvious in India, where I was introduced to it first. We had to stand in a line in order to get this pamphlet in the hospital. Then we were like, our blood pressure was checked. We were given a note. Then we had to go to another room to get information, get medicines, then come back to this room. So that whole flow was there, and that's how we could understand that, okay, this is not working. Like maybe it sounds easy, but for someone actually going through this flow, it's really frustrating for them, and something needs to be changed over here. So yeah, you get a first-hand experience about the surroundings, and you can experience the problems that these users face. And this also brings me to explaining a bit about situational disabilities, which you can look at more in detail on as part of Microsoft's inclusive design toolkit. So over here, so another plus point of following accessibility guidelines and making all your products accessible is that you not only, so there are three kinds of disabilities. There is a permanent disability where a user has only one arm. There's a temporary one where he or she has some arm injury, and something can be situational as well, where the user is a new parent holding a child in one hand, so the user can use the information only with the other hand. So when we design for accessibility, we're not only catering to these two kinds of accessibilities, but also to a lot of people like new parents, distracted drivers, who like when you talk about seeing, then when you talk about hearing, a bartender, because there's so much noise. Then while speaking, someone with a heavy accent. So yeah, so if you follow accessibility guidelines, you're just increasing your audience. That should not be the goal actually, but the goal should be to include them and make them feel included. But that is also an added advantage of following these guidelines. And that kind of brings me to the end of the presentation. So I wanted to write these articles since a long time, and I kind of got started in it during the at the beginning of this pandemic, where I took a few like I did a few courses in IBM for becoming an accessibility advocate, and post that I started writing down my points and what my takeaways were. And one of them is like 4 easy to follow methods for everyone. You don't have to be someone who's designing an interface, digital interface. It could be a product, it could be a space. You could be a space designer, you could be an interior designer. Everything needs some like some effort to make make your design accessible. Then there are guidelines that are very, very specific to information architecture, UX design, and visual design. So if any of you are into these three sections, you should definitely go through this list. It may not be very different from what you read on the internet, but I've just tried my best to kind of compile it into one article. And then practicing web accessibility, the third one is like a combination of these two. So if you know, yeah, if you're just bored of reading all three, you can read this one, and it should give you the same information. And the way forward is that right now I'm working on like creating a card game that will promote uh, accessibility careers. So for high school students who are in the 10th to 12th grade, they're kind of in that area where they want to decide what they want to pursue in their life or what degree they want to pursue. So a lot of people don't know, but there are speech therapists, there are audiologists, there are I mean assistants for hearing disability. You can become someone who designs technology, assistive technology. So there are a lot of careers in this area, and the awareness is really on the low side. So I'm working on a game with like a few NGOs in India to get this into schools so that children are at least aware of these different career paths that they can pursue. I'm incorporating it in my daily work at IBM. And I'm also looking at possibilities of teaching and employing people with cognitive disabilities along with Samarthya Foundation. So it's a foundation based in Minneapolis. And I'm trying to, so I recently got this hobby, I developed this hobby of soap making. And the response was great. I got a lot of orders, requests. So I'm trying to teach soap making to these people who have cognitive disabilities and create gainful employment for them. And yeah, like make recipes and give it to them, teach them, so that they don't have to do work like filling forms. Like sometimes they're giving a lot of redundant work just because of one small uh, disability, which may not become a barrier to a lot of other things. So that's an effort I'm trying to make. And I will share this. So I've created a Google Doc where I'll just make like a list of all the resources I was referring to, and everyone can, like you guys can comment on it and add resources as well, and it can be like a running document. And yeah, I would like to thank IBM, the hospital that I worked with. No, it's called NIMHANS, my college, which gave me the opportunities, like introduced me to this whole area. And I also interned with GE Healthcare, where I kind of got introduced to healthcare design in my third year in college. So yes, that's all. So if anyone has any questions or any comments,
Amazing.
you can.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, everyone, can we just give Mansi a round of applause? Amazing, amazing. I learned so much. I don't know about you all, but